My journey with collecting began, I would imagine, just around the time when I was leaving school, starting college. Because just prior to that, my father had given me this bunch of coins and set me off on a wondrous journey of inquiry.
I think, as a creative person, I've always collected something because I think other creatives will respond and it will feel familiar because you hinge everything that you create on something that inspires you, something that feels exciting, something that triggers a feeling. So I think from a very young age, the first thing I collected was, of course, pressed flowers. We had a beautiful garden, and I used to help my great grandmother with her morning puja, and I used to always run out in the morning. And I remember the parijat would fall from the tree. It's the white jasmine with the orange stem, and I would collect those and I would press those into the pages of a book. So if you ask me, what did I really start collecting? It was flowers. I started with pressed flowers. And then, of course, over a period of time, as I grew up, I've always been interested in textiles, and I started sort of collecting them. Actually, I just started buying them. So if I was in a local market, or if I was traveling, I was somewhere in India. I've had the privilege of traveling into many parts of our country. I would pick up a local textile, and my collection sort of happened without me even realizing that I was collecting anything. It's only later that, when you start to create a home, when you start to put things together, that you realize that you have these objects or fabrics or posters, things that speak to you. So I think Paul and I, our journeys are maybe slightly different in that, Paul, yours comes from history, it comes from a sense of curiosity, wanting to learn and know more about India and our culture. And I think for me, it comes from the point of view of sights and smells and color and how these come together, and the stories that they tell about the lives that people have led. I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, in fact, I think one of the fascinating things for me, and the reason for probably my collecting journey being grounded more in a sense of history and curiosity about history of our country was the fact that I grew up in Delhi.
Yeah.
I was surrounded by visible history. I lived in Hoskas, so our childhood playgrounds were inside the Hoskas village, in the ruins of that lovely complex, and our picnics were, on cycle going to the Kutab or to Tughlakabad, or Siri, and so history was uh, one of the main pillars around which this sense of curiosity built.
I think for both of us, the collecting journey has been something that we've been passionate about, individually and also together. And the impulse to collect at the end, I would say, is a very emotional thing. Even today, we look at something together, and we never spend hours debating something that we're buying. There's an instinct, and he likes something, I like something. There's also the feeling of a shared experience because he'll bring a perspective that's different from my perspective. So he may comment on provenance or the history or the story or what could have inspired it. I might be more excited by the technique or the colors, the way in which it's evocative. But for us, that's it. Ultimately, is joy, and I think that's what collecting is.
Subscribe to Sarmaya and be a part of the stories and conversations around art, history, and culture.